The freezer door slammed shut behind her. Keisha Washington pressed her back against the cold metal, tears streaming down her face. Her phone buzzed again, another text from her cousin. 6 p.m. tomorrow, then the house is mine. I need a husband by today, she whispered, her voice cracking. Before 6 p.m. Who needs a husband before 6 p.m. on Valentine's Day? She laughed through her tears because this was insane. 25 years old, working double shifts at a diner and 16 hours to find a husband or lose everything. That's a very low bar, a voice said from the darkness. Keisha screamed and spun around. A man stood in the doorway, tall, Korean, wearing a suit that cost more than her car, eyes that seemed to see straight through her soul. "Who are you?" she gasped. "Someone who can solve your problem," he said, stepping inside. The door clicked shut. "You need a husband by 6 p.m. I need a wife by tomorrow. I think we can help each other. You're insane." "Maybe," he said, pulling out a business card. "But you're out of time, and I'm your only option. If you've ever felt backed into a corner with no way out, hit that subscribe button right now. You're going to want to see how this unfolds." Keisha Washington was not a small woman, and she had stopped apologizing for it 3 years ago on her 22nd birthday when her grandmother had looked her dead in the eye and said, "Baby, God gave you all that body for a reason. Don't you dare try to hide it." Right now, though, as she pressed her back against the cold metal of the restaurant's walk-in freezer door at 2 a.m. on February 14th, her whole body was shaking, and it had nothing to do with the temperature. At 6 p.m. on Valentine's Day, Keisha would lose the only home she'd ever known. The tears were hot on her face, which felt absurd because she was literally standing in a freezer, surrounded by frozen chicken wings and industrial-sized bags of French fries. But her life had become absurd in the last 6 hours. "I need a husband by today," she said out loud to a box of frozen tilapia. Like literally today, before 6 p.m. Who needs a husband before 6 p.m. on Valentine's Day? Everyone else is buying chocolates and roses, and I need a whole husband. She laughed, a sharp broken sound that echoed off the metal shelves. The laugh turned into a sob, then back into a laugh, because this was so ridiculous it had crossed over into comedy. Her phone buzzed for the 40th time. Another message from Aunt Patricia. "Your cousin Deshawn already called a real estate agent. He's getting the house appraised. He said it's poetic justice that you'll lose everything on the day of love. I'm so sorry, baby." Her grandmother had died 3 months ago, and the will had been read last week. The little house in Atlanta that Keisha had grown up in, the only place she'd ever felt safe, was hers. But there was a catch. There was always a catch. Her grandmother had written a clause. To inherit the house, Keisha had to be married before her 25th birthday, which was today, February 14th, Valentine's Day, by 6 p.m. exactly. The lawyer had been apologetic, but firm. "It's unusual, but it's legal. Your grandmother was very specific. She believed marriage would give you stability." What her grandmother had actually believed was that Keisha needed a man to take care of her, which was both insulting and, given the current situation, maybe a little bit psychic. The problem was that Keisha had exactly 0 prospects. Her last relationship had ended 8 months ago, when her boyfriend told her he wasn't ready for something serious, and then got engaged to someone else 6 weeks later. And now, Deshawn, her cousin who hadn't spoken to her since he stole her bike when they were 12, was circling like a vulture. If she didn't meet the terms by 6 p.m., the house went to him. He'd already told half the family he was going to sell it and buy a truck. Her grandmother's house, where 3 generations had lived, where the kitchen still smelled like peach cobbler, was going to become a truck. "I need a husband," she said again to the frozen chicken wings. "Any husband. I'm not picky. Just has to have a pulse and be willing to sign some papers. Is that really too much to ask on Valentine's Day?" "That's a very low bar," a voice said from behind her. Keisha screamed and spun around so fast she slipped on the icy floor and grabbed a shelf to steady herself. A man was standing in the doorway of the freezer, a man who definitely had not been there 30 seconds ago. He was tall, Korean, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a black, expensive suit. His hair was perfectly styled, and he was looking at her with an expression that was somewhere between amused and calculating. "Who are you?" she gasped, her heart hammering. "How long have you been standing there? And how did you even get in here? The kitchen is closed." "Long enough to understand your situation," he said. His voice was smooth, a low baritone with barely any accent. "You're looking for a husband by 6 p.m. today." "I was talking to myself," she said quickly. "It's a thing I do when I'm stressed. I wasn't serious. I mean, who actually needs a husband by 6 p.m. on Valentine's Day?" "You are very serious," he said. He stepped into the freezer and the door swung shut behind him with a soft click. They were alone now in the cold. "You need to be married by 6 p.m. today, or you lose your inheritance. A house in the old 4th Ward, yellow with white shutters, 3 bedrooms, appraised at approximately $400,000. Her blood went cold. "How do you know all that? Who the hell are you?" "I make it my business to know things," he said simply. He took another step closer, sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to see through her, and an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. "I can help you." "I don't know you," she said, pressing herself back against the shelf. "I don't know how you found me, or why you're in this freezer, or how you know about my grandmother's will, but this is creepy. Really, really creepy." "My name is Kong Minho," he said, "and I need a wife." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the freezer and Keisha's own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She stared at him, trying to figure out if this was a joke or a trap or some kind of elaborate prank show. "You need a wife," she repeated slowly. "Yes. And you just happened to be lurking in the freezer of a diner in Atlanta at 2 a.m. on Valentine's Day?" "I was looking for you," he said, as if that made perfect sense. That was somehow more terrifying. "Why were you looking for me?" "Because I need what you need," he said. "A marriage. Temporary, transactional, mutually beneficial. You need a husband to secure your inheritance. I need a wife by tomorrow to close a business deal. We can help each other." "You're insane," she said. "This is insane. I'm not marrying a stranger I met in a freezer on Valentine's Day." "Then you'll lose your house," he said. It wasn't cruel, just factual. "Your cousin Deshaun will inherit it. He'll sell it. You'll have nothing. I'm offering you a solution." "What kind of solution involves marrying someone you don't know?" "The practical kind," he said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. It was black with silver lettering, just his name and a phone number. "I'll give you 1 hour to think about it. If you're interested, call me. If not, I'll disappear and you'll never see me again." "What do you get out of this?" she asked, taking the card carefully. "That's something we can discuss if you call," he said. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think your grandmother was wrong." "About what?" "You don't need a man to give you stability," he said. "You're already strong. I can see it. But sometimes strong people need help too. There's no shame in that." And then he was gone. Keisha stood there for a full minute staring at the business card, wondering if she'd just had a stress-induced hallucination. But the card was real. The cold was real. And the man had been real too. She pulled out her phone and Googled him. The results were sparse. A few mentions in business articles about international investments, a blurry photo from a charity gala, and absolutely nothing about his personal life. It was like he was a ghost. She looked at the business card again. This was insane. This was the plot of a bad movie. But she was out of options and out of time. It was 2:15 a.m. She had less than 16 hours. She took a deep breath and dialed the number. He answered on the first ring. "You're calling sooner than I expected." "If I do this," she said, her voice steadier than she felt, "I want to know everything. What you're getting out of it. Why you need a wife. What happens after. All of it." "Meet me in 1 hour," he said. "There's a cafe on Peachtree Street, 3 blocks from where you are. It's open all night. We'll talk." He hung up before she could respond. The cafe was exactly where he'd said it would be, a small place called the Night Owl with big windows and mismatched furniture. She could see him immediately, sitting at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee already waiting. He'd taken off his suit jacket. His white shirt was crisp and perfect. She pushed open the door and a bell chimed. He looked up and gestured to the seat across from him. "You bought me coffee," she said as she sat down. "You look like you need it," he said, pushing 1 cup toward her. "Cream, no sugar, am I right?" "How did you—" She stopped. Of course he knew. "Let's just skip past the part where you pretend you're not a stalker and get to the part where you explain what's going on." "Fair enough," he said. He put down his phone and gave her his full attention. "I'm in the process of acquiring a significant piece of property, a hotel chain, actually, very valuable. The seller is an old-fashioned Korean man, a second-generation immigrant who built his empire from nothing. He believes very strongly in family, tradition, and stability. He won't sell to a single man. He thinks single men are reckless and untrustworthy." "Are you reckless and untrustworthy?" she asked. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Very, but he doesn't need to know that." "So you need a wife to close a business deal?" "Yes, a wife who can convince him that I'm stable, settled, ready to carry on his legacy. Someone who can sit through dinners and smile at the right times and make me look like a responsible adult. And when the deal is done, we get divorced," he said simply, quietly, cleanly. "You get your house, I get my hotels, we both walk away. You can tell people it didn't work out. Irreconcilable differences, whatever you want." "How long?" 6 months, he said. "Maybe less if the deal moves quickly. He wants to see that the marriage is stable before he signs. Once the papers are signed and the properties transfer, we're done." "And what do I have to do for 6 months?" "Be seen with me occasionally," he said. "Attend a few events, smile for some photos, meet some people, convince them that we're married and happy. That's it." It sounded too easy. Nothing in life was ever that easy. "What's the catch? There's always a catch." "The catch," he said, leaning forward, his voice dropping lower, "is that my world is not like yours. The people I do business with are not office workers and accountants. They're dangerous. And if you're my wife, even temporarily, you become part of that danger. People might try to use you to get to me. People might try to hurt you to hurt me. You need to understand that before you agree to anything." "What kind of danger are we talking about?" she asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew. "The kind where you need to be smart, careful, and very aware of your surroundings at all times," he said bluntly. "The kind where I'll provide you with security, training, and protection, but you still need to be vigilant. The kind where your life will never be quite the same again." "You're in the Mafia," she said. It wasn't a question. "That's an oversimplification," he said, "but not entirely inaccurate. I prefer to think of it as specialized international business." "You're a gangster." "I'm a businessman who sometimes has to do business with people who operate outside traditional legal frameworks," he said. "But yes, if you want to call me a gangster, I won't argue with you. And you want me to marry you." "Yes." She should have walked away. Every instinct screamed at her to get up and leave, but there was no other solution. She had 14 hours left. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "I want money. Not just keeping my house. I want enough money to fix it up properly. My grandmother's plumbing hasn't worked right in 5 years. The roof leaks. The furnace is older than I am. I want money to pay off my student loans, and I want enough left over to quit this job and figure out what I actually want to do with my life." "Done," he said without hesitation. "I'll put $250,000 in an account in your name before we sign the marriage certificate. You can use it however you want." She blinked. $250,000. That was more than she'd make in 5 years at the diner. "Just like that?" "Just like that. What else?" "Protection," she said. "Real protection. Not just bodyguards standing around looking intimidating. If something happens, if someone comes after me because of you, I want to know you'll handle it. I want to know I'm not just bait." "You have my word," he said, and there was something in his voice, something steel-hard and unbreakable. Anything that threatens you threatens me, and I protect what's mine very, very seriously. No one will touch you. I'll make sure of it. The possessiveness in his tone sent a shiver down her spine. One more thing, she said. Name it. I'm a big girl, she said, meeting his eyes directly, refusing to look away. I'm not going to shrink myself for you or anyone else. I'm not going to lose weight because someone thinks I should. I'm not going to dress differently or talk differently or pretend to be something I'm not. If you need a trophy wife who looks like a model, go find someone else. I am who I am. I take up space. I'm not apologizing for it. Not for you, not for anyone. For the first time since she'd met him, his expression shifted into something genuine, something that looked almost like respect. I don't want you to change anything, he said quietly. I want you exactly as you are. Do you want to know why I chose you, Keisha? Why I've been watching you? Why? Because you're strong, he said. I've seen you handle drunk customers who get handsy. I've seen you stand up to your manager when she tried to short your paycheck. I've seen you give your tips to the dishwasher when his car broke down. You're kind. You're fierce. You don't back down. That's what I need. Not some fragile trophy wife who'll break the first time things get difficult. I need someone with spine, someone who can stand beside me and hold their ground. Strength comes in many forms, Keisha. Yours is just more visible than most, and that's exactly what I want. She didn't know if he meant it or if he was just very good at saying the right things. But in that moment, sitting in a cafe at 3 a.m. on Valentine's Day, about to make the most insane decision of her life, she chose to believe him. Okay, she said, I'll do it. He pulled out a folder from a leather bag beside his chair and slid it across the table. This is the contract. Read it carefully. If you have questions, ask them. This is legally binding. Once you sign, we're committed. She opened the folder and started reading. It was thorough, almost painfully so. Terms of the arrangement laid out in precise legal language. Duration, 6 months from the date of marriage. Financial compensation, $250,000 deposited upon marriage, with additional $50,000 upon successful completion of contract. Living arrangements, she would maintain her own residence but would be expected to spend at least 3 nights per week at his residence for appearances. Public appearances, minimum 2 per month at events of his choosing. Confidentiality clauses that were 3 pages long. Terms of dissolution, clean divorce after 6 months, no alimony, no claims on each other's assets. There was even a section about her safety, outlining the security measures he would provide. 24/7 security team, personal protection training, encrypted communication devices, emergency protocols. At the bottom was a line for her signature. You came very prepared, she said. I don't do anything halfway, he said. If you're going to do something, do it right. That's my philosophy. She found a pen in her purse and held it over the signature line. This was it, the point of no return. She thought about her grandmother's house, about the yellow paint and white shutters, about the kitchen that still smelled like peach cobbler. She thought about Deshawn's smug face, about losing everything. She thought about the man sitting across from her, a stranger who'd offered her a way out with no judgment and surprising respect. She signed her name. Her hand didn't shake. Whatever happened next, she was choosing it. He signed his name below hers in sharp, precise strokes, and just like that, they had a deal. We need to make this legal by 6 p.m., she said, looking at her phone. It was 3:30 a.m. How are we going to do that? I have a contact at the courthouse, he said. We'll go first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. By noon, you'll be Mrs. Kang, legally and officially. Mrs. Kang, she repeated. It sounded foreign on her tongue. We should go, he said, standing. You need rest. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. Where am I going? She asked. I can't go back to my apartment. My roommate will ask too many questions. You'll come with me, he said. It wasn't a question or a command, just a statement of fact. She hesitated. This was moving fast, too fast, but she'd already signed the contract. Okay, she said, But I need to stop by my apartment first. I need clothes and my toothbrush and... We'll stop by your apartment. His car was parked outside, a sleek black sedan. A driver was waiting, a serious-looking man with an earpiece. He opened the back door without a word. The interior smelled like leather and money. "This is insane," she muttered as they pulled into traffic. "Yes," Minho agreed calmly, "but it's also our best option." They drove through the empty Atlanta streets. Her apartment was in a less-than-stellar neighborhood. The driver pulled up to her building and Minho followed her inside without asking. The elevator was broken as usual, so they climbed the stairs. Her roommate Tasha was asleep on the couch with Netflix still playing. She tiptoed to her room and grabbed a duffel bag, stuffing clothes and toiletries inside as quietly as possible. Jeans, t-shirts, her favorite hoodie, her toothbrush and face wash, her phone charger, her laptop, her grandmother's pearl earrings. "You live here?" Minho asked from the doorway, looking around her tiny room. "Not everyone grows up in mansions," she whispered, suddenly defensive. "I didn't grow up in a mansion," he said quietly. "I grew up in a one-room apartment in Seoul with 5 other people. We shared one bathroom. We slept on the floor. I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be ashamed of where you come from." She paused and looked at him, really looked at him. "You don't act like someone who grew up with nothing." "That's because I learned to hide it," he said. "That's the first thing you learn when you climb out of poverty. How to blend in with people who were born into money. How to wear the right clothes, say the right things, move through their world like you belong there. Come on, we need to go before your roommate wakes up." They made it back to the car without incident. Minho's place was not what she expected. She'd imagined some sterile penthouse. Instead, it was a renovated warehouse in the west side, all exposed brick and warm lighting, with actual comfortable furniture. There were bookshelves filled with books in both English and Korean, artwork on the walls, a kitchen that was clearly used. It felt like a home. "The guest room is upstairs," he said, showing her a spacious room with a big bed and an attached bathroom. "You'll have privacy. I won't bother you. This is your space." "Thanks," she said, suddenly exhausted. "Get some sleep," Minho said. "Set an alarm for 7 a.m. We need to leave by 7:30. She nodded and watched him leave. She sat on the bed, trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed. "Aunt Patricia." "Where are you?" "Deshaun is asking questions. He's worried you're planning something. Please be careful, baby." Keisha turned off her phone. Tomorrow she'd deal with Deshaun. Tomorrow she'd get married. Tomorrow her life would change completely. But tonight, she was just going to sleep and hope she hadn't just made the biggest mistake of her life. She woke up to the sun streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. She grabbed her phone. 7:05 a.m. She had 25 minutes. She took the fastest shower of her life, threw on jeans and a nice blouse, and followed the smell of coffee downstairs. Minho was in the kitchen, dressed in a different suit, this one charcoal gray, reading something on his tablet. 2 mugs of coffee were waiting, along with bagels and cream cheese and fruit. "Good morning," he said. "Did you sleep?" "A little," she lied. "Is that coffee for me?" "Yes, cream, no sugar. And there's breakfast. Eat something. You'll need your strength today." She grabbed a bagel and coffee and sat at the kitchen island. "What happens after we're married?" "We will go to your house," he said. "We meet your cousin. We make it very clear that the house is yours. We will show him the marriage certificate." "He's not going to take it well," she said. "I'm counting on it," Minho said with a small smile. "I like it when people underestimate me." They finished breakfast and left at 7:30. The drive took 25 minutes. Atlanta on a Saturday morning was busy with people running errands, buying last-minute Valentine's Day gifts. The courthouse was already busy, people rushing around with folders and stressed expressions. Minho led her through the chaos with confidence. They were met by a woman in a sharp suit who introduced herself as Attorney Chen. "Everything is ready," she said briskly. "We have a judge waiting. This will take about 15 minutes. I've expedited the marriage license. You'll be officially married by 8:30. 15 minutes? Keisha repeated. That's it? Civil ceremonies are quick, Attorney Chen said, unless you want something more elaborate. No, Keisha said quickly. Quick is good. They were led to a small room where a judge was waiting. He was an older black man with kind eyes and a warm smile. Good morning, he said. Happy Valentine's Day. Congratulations. Are you both ready? Keisha looked at Minho. He looked at her. This was it, the point of no return. Yes, she said, I'm ready. The ceremony was quick. They repeated vows about love and honor and cherishing. The judge pronounced them married. Minho slipped a ring onto her finger, the gold band with the diamond that caught the light and sparkled. She did the same for him, the simple gold band that looked almost delicate on his larger hand. And just like that, Keisha Washington became Keisha Kang. You may kiss your bride, the judge said with an encouraging smile. Minho looked at her, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. He leaned in and pressed his lips to hers, soft and brief and surprisingly gentle. It was just for show, just part of the performance. But her heart hammered anyway. They signed the marriage certificate and walked out of the courthouse as husband and wife. The sun was bright, the sky clear. It was a beautiful day to get married to a stranger on Valentine's Day. How do you feel? Minho asked as they got back in the car. Like I'm in a fever dream, she said honestly. You? The same, he admitted, but at least it's an interesting fever dream. They drove to her grandmother's house. Keisha felt her stomach twist as they pulled up to the familiar yellow house with the white shutters. Deshawn's truck was parked in the driveway, big and obnoxious with truck nuts hanging from the back and a Confederate flag sticker. She could see him through the window talking on his phone. Ready? Minho asked. No, she said honestly, but let's do it anyway. They got out and walked up to the front door. Keisha used her key and walked in. The house smelled like her grandmother, like peach cobbler and lavender and home. Deshawn was in the living room on the phone, laughing. He looked up when they entered, his expression morphing from surprise to annoyance. What are you doing here? He asked, covering the phone. I live here, Keisha said calmly. What are you doing here? This is about to be my house, Deshawn said. He looked at his watch, a gaudy gold thing that was definitely fake. You have about 9 hours left, and it's Valentine's Day. That's gotta sting, huh? Losing everything on Valentine's Day because you couldn't find a man? About that, Keisha said. She held up her left hand, showing off the gold band with the diamond. I got married this morning. Happy Valentine's Day to me. The house is mine. Deshawn's face went through several emotions at once. Shock, disbelief, anger, confusion, suspicion. You got married? He repeated slowly. To who? You didn't even have a boyfriend yesterday. I checked your Instagram. I asked around. Nobody's seen you with anyone. And today I have a husband, Keisha said sweetly. Life moves fast, especially on Valentine's Day. Minho stepped forward from where he'd been standing quietly in the doorway. Hello, I'm Kang Minho, Keisha's husband. Deshawn looked Minho up and down, his expression twisting into something ugly. You expect me to believe you got married? Just like that? You didn't even have a boyfriend yesterday and now you're married to some random Asian dude? This is fraud. This is fake. The marriage is real, Keisha said. Legal and official. Filed with the county this morning. I can show you the certificate if you want. This is bullshit, Deshawn said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling the lawyer right now. There's no way this is legal. You probably paid some actor to pretend to marry you. This is fraud, and I'm going to prove it. Call whoever you want, Minho said calmly. His voice was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. The marriage is legal. The certificate is filed. The house belongs to my wife. There's nothing to prove. Your wife, Deshawn sneered. He turned to Keisha, his eyes cold and mean. You really think I'm just going to walk away? You think I'm going to let you steal what's mine? Grandma wanted me to have this house. No, she didn't, Keisha said, her voice hard. Grandma left it to me. You're just mad because you thought I'd fail. You were counting on it. You should have failed, Deshawn snapped. You're nobody. You're a fat waitress living paycheck to paycheck. You don't deserve this house." "And I'm not?" Keisha said, feeling the anger rise in her chest. "I took care of her when she was sick. I was here every day. I held her hand when she died. Where were you? You didn't visit. Not once. Not even at the funeral." "I don't have to care to own property," Deshawn said. "That's the beauty of inheritance. Feelings don't matter. The law matters. And the law says if you're not married by 6 p.m. today, this house is mine." "But I am married," Keisha said. "So the law says this house is mine. Now get out." "You can't kick me out," Deshawn said, but his bravado was cracking. "Actually, I can," Keisha said. "This is my house. You're trespassing." Minho stepped forward, his presence suddenly much more intimidating. "My wife asked you to leave. I suggest you do it, now." "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" Deshawn said, trying to muster courage. "Some random guy she met on Tinder?" "My name is Kang Minho," he said, his voice dropping to a tone that made the air in the room feel colder. "And you should be very careful about how you speak to my wife. I don't appreciate disrespect." There was something in his voice, something dangerous that made even Deshawn pause. For the first time. He seemed to realize that this wasn't just some actor. This was something else. "Is that a threat?" Deshawn asked, but his voice wavered. "It's a suggestion," Minho said. "Get out of this house. Don't come back. If I see you here again, or if I hear that you've been bothering my wife in any way, we're going to have a very different conversation, one that you won't enjoy." For a moment, Deshawn looked like he might argue. Then he looked at Minho again, really looked at him, at the expensive suit and the quiet confidence and the absolutely unshakable calm, and something in Minho's expression made him think better of it. He grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the door. "This isn't over," he said, trying to salvage some dignity. "I'm going to fight this. I'm going to prove this marriage is fake." "Good luck with that," Keisha said. "Happy Valentine's Day, Deshawn." He shouldered past Minho on the way out, but Minho didn't move, didn't even blink. The door slammed shut, and they heard Deshawn's truck roar to life and peel out with an unnecessary screech of tires. Keisha let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Well, that went well." "He's going to be a problem," Minho said. "Yeah," Keisha agreed. "He's not the type to give up easily." "Neither am I," Minho said. "If he becomes a problem, I'll handle it." He looked around the house, taking in the worn furniture and family photos on the walls. "This is a good house. I can see why you wanted to keep it." "It's home," Keisha said softly, her voice catching. "Or it was. I don't even know what it is now." "It's still home," Minho said gently. "That doesn't change just because things got complicated." He checked his watch. "I have a meeting in an hour. Will you be okay here?" "Yeah," she said. "I'm going to clean up. Maybe sit in Grandma's chair for a while." He nodded and started toward the door, then paused. "Keisha." "Yeah?" "You were right," he said, "about not shrinking yourself. Don't ever do that. The world needs more people who take up space unapologetically." He left before she could respond. Keisha stood in her grandmother's living room, now legally hers, wearing a wedding ring from a man she barely knew. She should have felt lost. Instead, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd found something. But as she looked around the quiet house, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a question she couldn't ignore. What had she really just signed up for? The first week of marriage was strange. Minho was gone most days, attending meetings and doing whatever mysterious business he did. Keisha spent the time at her grandmother's house, cleaning and painting and rearranging furniture. It felt good to make the space hers. At night, she'd go back to Minho's warehouse. They'd eat dinner together, usually takeout from restaurants she'd never heard of, and talk about nothing important. The weather, the news, movies they'd seen, books they'd read. It was comfortable in a way that surprised her. He was easy to talk to when he wasn't being mysterious and intimidating. On the 8th day, everything changed. Keisha was at the house painting the kitchen a soft yellow that reminded her of sunshine when her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Keisha Kang?" a woman's voice asked. Professional. Cold. "Yes. Who is this?" My name is Detective Morrison. I'm with the Atlanta Police Department. I need to ask you some questions about your husband." Keisha's blood went cold. She set down her paint roller carefully. "What kind of questions?" "The kind best discussed in person," Detective Morrison said. "Can you come down to the station, say, in an hour?" "Am I in trouble?" "Not yet," the detective said, and there was something ominous in those two words. "But you might want to think carefully about the man you married." "1 hour, Mrs. Kang." The line went dead. Keisha stood there in her half-painted kitchen, her mind racing. She called Minho immediately. He answered on the second ring. "The police want to talk to me about you," she said without preamble. There was a pause, a long pause. "Don't go," he said finally. His voice was tight. "They said I'm not in trouble yet. That's the kind of yet that becomes definitely if I ignore them." "Keisha, listen to me very carefully," Minho said, his voice urgent in a way she'd never heard before. "Do not go to the police station. Do not answer any questions. Do not talk to anyone. I'm sending someone to you right now. Her name is Grace. She's my attorney. She'll know what to do." "Minho, what's going on? What did you do?" "I'll explain everything tonight," he said. "But right now, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She thought about it. She barely knew this man. She had no reason to trust him. They'd been married for 8 days, but something in his voice, something genuine beneath the urgency, made her nod even though he couldn't see her. "Okay," she said. "I'll wait for Grace." "Thank you," he said, and she could hear the relief. "Grace will be there in 20 minutes. Don't leave. Don't answer the door for anyone else." Grace arrived exactly 20 minutes later in a silver BMW, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Keisha's entire wardrobe. She was Korean American, maybe in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "You didn't talk to the police, did you?" she asked as Keisha let her in. "No," Keisha said. "Minho said to wait for you." "Good," Grace said. She sat down at the kitchen table, moved aside a paint tray, and pulled out a tablet. "The police have been investigating Minho for about 6 months. They think he's involved in organized crime, money laundering, racketeering, possibly trafficking. They're building a case." "He is involved in organized crime," Keisha said. "He told me that when he asked me to marry him. He was very upfront about the danger." Grace raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "He told you?" "Yeah. He said the people he does business with are dangerous. He basically told me he was a gangster." "Interesting," Grace said, tapping something into her tablet. "Most men in his position lie about that part." "He said lying would put me in more danger," Keisha said. "Smart man," Grace muttered. "Okay, here's the situation. The police want to talk to you because they think you might have information about his business dealings. They also think the marriage might be fake, which would be fraud." "It is fake," Keisha said. "I mean, it's legally real, but we got married so I could inherit my grandmother's house, and so he could close a business deal." "Legally, it's very real," Grace corrected firmly. "And that's what we need to focus on. As far as the police are concerned, you are Minho's wife. You married him because you fell in love. You know nothing about his business. You're just a wife who loves her husband. That's the story. That's the only story." "They're not going to believe that." "They don't have to believe it," Grace said. "They just have to not be able to prove otherwise. And as long as you don't give them anything, they can't prove anything." She stood up and smoothed her suit. "If they contact you again, do not speak to them without me present. You have that right. Exercise it. And if they show up here with questions, you don't have to let them in without a warrant." "This is insane," Keisha said. "Welcome to your new life," Grace said with a wry smile. "It gets easier, eventually." She left and Keisha was alone again with her thoughts and half-painted kitchen. She tried to go back to painting but couldn't focus. Her phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Patricia. "Baby, Deshaun is telling everyone you paid some man to marry you," she said without preamble. "He's saying it's fraud and he's going to sue. He's been calling everyone in the family." "Let him try," Keisha said. "The marriage is legal." "I believe you, baby," Aunt Patricia said, but people are talking. They're saying cruel things. People always say cruel things about me, Keisha said. I'm used to it. I'm too fat, I'm too big. Now I'm a fraud, too. What's one more thing? You're not any of those things, Aunt Patricia said fiercely. You're perfect exactly as you are. They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Keisha sat in her grandmother's chair and closed her eyes. 1 week ago, her biggest problem was making rent. Now she was married to a mafia boss, being investigated by the police, and dealing with family drama that wouldn't quit. When Minho came home that night, she was waiting for him. He looked tired, his tie loosened, his jacket over his arm, dark circles under his eyes. Grace filled you in, he asked. Yeah, Keisha said. Why didn't you tell me the police were investigating you? Would it have changed your decision? He asked. She thought about it honestly. No, she admitted, but I still should have known. You're right, he said, sitting down heavily across from her. I'm sorry. I should have been more forthcoming. What else haven't you told me? He was quiet for a long moment. There are people who want to hurt me, people I've crossed in business. They're not going to be happy that I suddenly have a wife. Why not? Because it makes me look weak, he said. In my world, attachment is weakness. They'll see you as a target. So I'm bait. No, he said firmly. You're not bait. You're my wife, and I will protect you. But yes, you're also a target now. That's the reality. At least he was honest, and that was the moment Keisha realized she hadn't just married a businessman. She had married a target, and now she was one too. What do we do about it? Keisha asked. We make you less of a target, he said. Starting tomorrow, you're going to learn how to protect yourself. Like self-defense classes? More than that, he said. You're going to learn how to read people, how to spot a threat, how to be aware of your surroundings. You're going to learn how to shoot, how to fight, how to escape. I'm going to teach you how to survive. That's a lot, she said. Yes, he agreed. But you can handle it. You're stronger than you think you are. You barely know me. I know enough, he said. I know you don't back down when challenged. I know you love your family and would do anything to protect what's yours. That's all I need to know. His faith in her was surprising. Okay, she said. Teach me. The training started the next morning at 6 a.m. Minho woke her up with coffee. They went to a private gym in an industrial area. A woman was waiting for them, muscular and intimidating with scars on her knuckles. This is Sarah, Minho said. She's going to be your primary instructor. Primary? Keisha repeated. How many instructors are there? 3, Minho said. Sarah handles physical training and combat. James handles situational awareness, and I'll handle the social aspects. Sarah stepped forward. Let's see what you've got. The first session was brutal. Sarah didn't go easy on her. She taught Keisha how to break grips, how to strike vulnerable points, how to use her size and weight as an advantage. Big doesn't mean weak, Sarah said as Keisha gasped for air. Big means you have more power, more mass. We're going to turn you into a tank. They trained for 3 hours every morning. Physical conditioning, self-defense techniques, weapons handling, how to shoot a gun, how to use a knife, how to improvise weapons from everyday objects. It was exhausting and terrifying and exhilarating. Keisha felt herself getting stronger, not just physically, but mentally. She was learning to trust her instincts, to move without thinking. James handled the afternoons. He was a quiet man in his 60s with silver hair. He'd spent 30 years in intelligence work. He taught Keisha how to read body language, how to spot a tail, how to memorize faces and details. They'd sit in cafes and he'd quiz her. Who's watching us? Who came in alone but keeps looking at the door? Who's nervous and why? It was like learning a new language, one made of gestures and glances and micro-expressions. The evenings were for Minho. He took her to expensive restaurants where everyone seemed to know him. He taught her how to use the right fork, how to make small talk with dangerous people, how to smile and nod while gathering information. The goal isn't to blend in, he explained over oysters. You're my wife. You should command respect, not fade into the background. "I don't know how to command respect from these people," she said. "You already do," he said. "You just don't realize it yet. Watch." He flagged down a waiter and introduced her as his wife. The waiter's demeanor changed immediately, becoming more attentive and respectful. "They respect you because you're with me," he said. "But soon, they'll respect you because of who you are. That's the goal." 3 weeks into the training, Keisha started to feel different, more confident, more aware. She walked differently, carried herself differently. She noticed things she never would have noticed before. The way Minho's driver always positioned himself between her and the door. The way certain people at events gave Minho a wide berth while others tried to get close. The hierarchy of it all. She also noticed that Minho was different around her, less guarded, more open. He'd tell her stories about growing up in Seoul, about coming to America with nothing and building an empire through sheer force of will. He never talked about the specifics of his work, but she could read between the lines. He'd done things he wasn't proud of, made choices that kept him up at night, but he'd survived. "Do you regret it?" she asked one night as they sat on his rooftop. "The things you've done to get here?" "Every day," he said quietly. "But regret doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring back the people I've hurt or undo the decisions I've made. All I can do is try to be better tomorrow than I was today." "That's very philosophical for a gangster," she said. He laughed, a real laugh that made him look younger. "Even gangsters have feelings, Keisha." "I'm starting to realize that," she said. The moment was broken by his phone ringing. He checked it and his expression darkened. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where we need to leave right now," he said. "Someone just tried to break into your grandmother's house." They drove to the house in tense silence. When they arrived, police cars were already there, lights flashing. A window had been shattered and the front door was hanging open. Keisha's stomach dropped. Detective Morrison was there taking photos. She looked up when Keisha and Minho arrived. "Mrs. Kang," she said with false warmth. "Funny how trouble seems to follow you these days." "Someone broke into my house," Keisha said. "Did you catch them?" "No," Morrison said. "Neighbors called it in, but whoever it was got spooked and ran. Any idea who might want to break into your house?" "No," Keisha lied. "Really?" Morrison said. "Because word on the street is your cousin Deshaun has been very vocal about how this house should be his. Any chance he might be upset enough to do something stupid?" "I don't know what Deshaun would or wouldn't do," Keisha said carefully. "We're not close." "But you did cut him out of an inheritance," Morrison pressed. "That could make someone desperate." "My grandmother left the house to me," Keisha said firmly. "There was no cutting involved." Morrison turned her attention to Minho. "And you, Mr. Kang, you've been busy lately. Got married, started playing house with your new wife. Must be nice." "I don't know what you're referring to," Minho said calmly. "Sure you don't," Morrison said. She pulled out a card and handed it to Keisha. "If you remember anything, give me a call. And Mrs. Kang, be careful who you trust. People aren't always who they seem." She walked away. Minho's men went inside to check the damage. Keisha followed, her heart sinking. And what she saw made her blood run cold. The house had been ransacked, drawers pulled out, cushions slashed, pictures knocked off walls. But that wasn't the worst part. On the living room wall, spray-painted in blood-red letters, were the words, 6 p.m., and in the center of her grandmother's favorite armchair, the one Keisha had sat in countless times as a child, was a knife. Stabbed through a photograph of Keisha from her high school graduation, pinning it to the cushion. Someone had been in her house. Someone who knew about the 6 p.m. deadline. Someone who wanted her to know they could get to her any time they wanted. Keisha's hands started shaking, not from fear, from rage. "They were looking for something," Minho said, examining the destruction, but his voice was tight, controlled, like he was holding something back. "What could I possibly have that someone would want?" Keisha asked, unable to tear her eyes away from the knife through her photograph. "I don't know," Minho said. But there was something in his voice, something that told her he was lying. For the first time since she'd married him, Keisha wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. "I'm having a full security team installed here by morning," Minho said, pulling out his phone. "Cameras, motion sensors, reinforced locks. This place will be a fortress." "You don't have to do that," Keisha said, though she was grateful. "Yes, I do," Minho said firmly. "This is your home. I'm not letting anyone take that from you or destroy it." But as he made the call, Keisha noticed something. His jaw was clenched too tight. His knuckles were white where he gripped the phone, and when he thought she wasn't looking, his eyes kept darting back to that spray-painted 6 p.m. on the wall. He knew something he wasn't telling her. They spent the next hour documenting everything. Nothing seemed to be missing, which made it even more disturbing. When they finally left, it was after midnight. Keisha was exhausted. "You're staying with me tonight," Minho said. "Okay," she said, too tired to argue. Back at the warehouse, Minho poured them both a drink. Whiskey, smooth and expensive. Keisha didn't usually drink hard liquor, but tonight seemed like a good time to start. "I'm sorry," Minho said. "For what?" "For bringing danger into your life," he said. "I knew it was a possibility, but I didn't think it would happen this fast." "You think this is connected to you?" she asked. "Not to Sean?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But we need to consider all possibilities." He sat down beside her. "If this gets too dangerous, if you want out, I'll understand. I can arrange for the house to be protected, even if we dissolve the marriage." "I'm not leaving," Keisha said firmly. "We made a deal. I don't back out of deals." "Even if it means putting yourself in danger?" "I was already in danger," she said. "Just a different kind. At least now I have the tools to fight back." He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You're remarkable. You know that?" "I'm surviving," she said. "Same as you." "No," he said quietly. "You're thriving. There's a difference." They sat in silence for a while, sipping whiskey and watching the city lights. Keisha felt something shift between them, something that had been building for weeks. "I should go to bed," she said, standing up before the moment could become something she wasn't ready for. "Keisha," Minho said as she reached the stairs. "Yeah?" "Thank you," he said, "for trusting me." "Thank you for being worth trusting," she said. But as she climbed the stairs to the guest room, she couldn't shake the image of that knife through her photograph, or the way Minho's expression had changed when he saw the spray-painted 6 p.m. He was hiding something big, and she was going to find out what it was. The next morning, her phone was blowing up. Text messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. She scrolled through them with growing dread until she found the source. Someone had posted on social media about the break-in, complete with photos. But that wasn't the worst part. The post also included speculation about Keisha's mysterious husband and his alleged criminal connections. There were photos of Minho from the charity gala, comments from people spreading rumors. "Minho!" she called out. He appeared in seconds. "What's wrong?" "Someone posted about the break-in," she said, showing him her phone, "and they're connecting it to you. They're saying you're involved in organized crime. This has thousands of shares already." His expression darkened. "This is coordinated." "What do you mean?" "Someone is trying to paint a picture," he said. "The break-in, the police investigation, now this. They're trying to make us look weak, vulnerable." "Who would do that?" "I have a few ideas," he said grimly. "Get dressed. We're going to see someone." 20 minutes later, they were pulling up to a sleek office building downtown. Minho led her to the top floor where a receptionist waved them through. They entered a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. A man was waiting for them. Korean, maybe in his 50s, with silver hair and a smile like a shark. "Minho," he said, standing, "and this must be the famous Mrs. Kang." "Keisha, this is Park Jin-woo," Minho said. "He's an old business associate." "Associate," Jin-woo repeated with a laugh. "Is that what we're calling it?" He turned his attention to Keisha. "You're causing quite a stir, Mrs. Kang. Minho has never brought a woman to meet me before. I'm special like that, Keisha said, channeling the confidence Sarah had been drilling into her. Jinwoo laughed, again. I like her. She's got spine. Most women are intimidated when they meet me. Should I be? Keisha asked. Probably, Jinwoo said with a grin, but I respect the boldness. Sit. Let's talk about your problem. They sat in leather chairs. Jinwoo poured them tea. What do you know about the break-in? Minho asked. Jinwoo's expression turned serious. Word is that someone is trying to scare you, make you look vulnerable. There's talk of a move against you, but no one knows who's behind it yet. Your best guess? Minho pressed. Kim Tae-sung has been making noise, Jinwoo said. He's never gotten over the territory you took from him last year. This could be his way of testing you. Tae-sung is reckless but not stupid, Minho said. Going after my wife would be a declaration of war. Maybe that's what he wants, Jinwoo said. He looked at Keisha. You should know, Mrs. Kang, that your husband has many enemies. Some of them won't care that you're innocent. To them, you're just a tool to hurt him. I'm nobody's tool, Keisha said firmly. Good, Jinwoo said with approval, because tools break easily. You'll need to be steel. They left the office with more questions than answers. In the car, Keisha turned to Minho. Who is Kim Tae-sung? A rival, Minho said. He runs a smuggling operation. Last year, he tried to move product through my territory without permission. The docks are mine. I control what comes in and what goes out. He thought he could operate without my knowledge. He was wrong. What did you do? I shut down one of his warehouses, Minho said, turned it over to the police with enough evidence to put some of his key people in prison. Cost him millions, made him look weak. And now he wants revenge, Keisha said. Possibly, Minho said, but we can't act without proof. If I move against him and I'm wrong, it'll start a war. Wars get people killed. And if you don't move and he comes after me again... Minho's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. For a moment, just a flicker, she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Pure, unfiltered rage. Then I'll burn his whole operation to the ground, he said, his voice so cold it sent chills down her spine. I'll destroy everything he's built. I'll make him wish he'd never been born. Keisha had never heard him sound like that. So certain, so brutal, so completely unlike the controlled, careful man she'd been living with. And for the first time, she understood what Minho really was. Not just a businessman who operated outside the